Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next installment of Azure Cloud Talk. We have a Brianless episode, but fear not, we have a special guest, Eric Archer, who's a TV producer. Welcome, Eric.
Thanks very much. Good to see you, Alec.
Yeah, nice to see you as well. You want to give us a little bit on your background and kind of what you've been up to, and how does one become a TV producer?
Absolutely. Well, I went to college to get a film studies degree. So that was where I started. And then I moved to New York after that and got into television production, climbing the rungs on the ladder there from unpaid intern up through office manager, coordinator, camera operator, story editor, producer, field producer, segment producer, all those steps. And then I went out to LA and got some bigger studio experience after New York and worked for NBC and Fox and some ad agencies and stuff like that. And then moved back to my home state of Massachusetts to get married and have kids and all of that. And I've been here running a community media television station for the last 12 years where we do hyper local original content as well as a bunch of other things. So I've been in the TV space now for over 20 years and in a few different markets, large and small, and just been making videos forever, really, of all shapes and sizes. And then the last couple of years started to get deep into AI and AI video production as well.
That's awesome. I think we chatted with somebody else in a similar niche. He came at it, I think, more from the tech side. Tim Huckabee's episode. It was pretty interesting. Kind of curious of what's your take on AI and what are you doing with that?
Well, I think there's a lot of ways that you could look at it, but the way that I look at it is through the lens of a video producer, of course, and I'm floored by it. I think it's a total paradigm shift, and I think it has unlocked individual creativity in a profound way that people don't fully appreciate yet. But, as I mentioned, the way that I had to come up required me to go move to different cities and apprentice with people and climb all these rungs and go to school and all these things. And I think that that's changed as a result of AI. At least a lot of it has. I mean, the idea that you can now generate a video instead of shoot it with a camera is a profound difference. No production is a small one. Any production requires equipment and people and at least a full day, if not weeks, and money and equipment and all this stuff. I mean, it's a heavy lift to do any video at all. So to be able to sit at your laptop and generate 4K imagery that looks like whatever you want it to look like, as well as all the audio, sound effects, voiceover, music, I mean, that is a profound shift. And so I've just been exploring that and learning the tools and blowing up workflows left and right. It's been a pretty fascinating last 18 months or so.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when we talk about AI and all those things because I think people hear about the news of Chat GPT and they're like, whatever, like I don't really care, it's overhyped, all this and that. And then I think the people who are really ear to the ground, like working on these tools every day, realize that will it replace us tomorrow? Probably not. I think the phrase I keep hearing is you won't be replaced by ChatGPT, you'll just be replaced by somebody who's using it because the productivity differences, to your point, is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not just productivity either. I find that it really fills in my knowledge gaps. Like, I don't care what the project is, even if it's a video project and I've made 8,000 videos before, there may still be a component of the process where I'm weaker. Maybe it's on
Mhm.
the promotional side, or maybe it's on the rigorous research side, or whatever. But like these tools now can really level up those weak spots. Like maybe I'm not a great writer. Well, guess what? Now I'm a better writer because I've got ChatGPT's help, and you can say all you want about it writing for you and things like that. But I think if you approach it like it's just going to level up my game so that I have a chance at success because my project A to Z is tight. It's smart. I think that's a big deal, that it's just going to be a partner in your process like that.
Right. And there's a lot of great ways to do that because, like you said, everybody has timelines, everybody has different things they need to get going. Even if you use it for, to your point, script writing, adding on to help with editing, promoting, like all these different things. Like, I think there is definitely content you can see out there that feels like, okay, somebody used AI to it, but it's so much quicker to generate AI content and then make sure it has your voice, like it feels like you're saying that versus sitting on a blank canvas, writing it out from scratch, and then like, man, maybe you were just thinking about, I don't know, pizza or something, and it just doesn't really come out great anyway. So you're like, oh, I'm going to throw that away versus now I'm editing something. It takes a lot less brain power. You can really get into the flow and be like, yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll continue your pizza analogy because one of the analogies I've been thinking of is like it's like it being walking into a grocery store, and if you're a chef, then you can make magic by going into a grocery store and sourcing all of your ingredients, or you might just be able to cook a little bit, or maybe you suck at it, but it's the same grocery store, and that's kind of the deal with all these new tools and stuff. Like, fortunately for me, I've been using media tools for 20 something years. So like this is not new to me and I'm fast with it and stuff. But yeah, I think we'll see real practitioners doing amazing stuff that starts to feel more emotional and human driven first. And then everyone else will start to catch on. But there'll still be a ton of really bad content out there when someone can just generate something that looks flashy but has no story or emotion behind it. There'll be a lot of that.
I mean, I think you can say that about some television anyway, right? Like people are so different of opinions that some people might look at TV and be like, that's garbage. I think that, like some people have very strong opinions of like reality TV, for example. Like a lot of those shows have purposely inserted drama just to make the show exciting because otherwise normal people locked in a room like might
Pretty
be
well.
kind of boring. So or
Yep, that's very true. Very true. I mean, yeah,
people
it's
who do
there's a lot of soulless content out there already, right? Like, how much is art? There's
right.
not that much art in all of the content, and that'll continue.
I'm kind of curious, can you touch a little bit more on, you said you've been blowing up workflows. Like, can you get a little bit more in the weeds of what exactly have you been seeing AI help you with and like what timeline examples or just like optimization, like you spending way less time doing this, so now you're getting better at this, or to your point, putting more soul and emotion into like basically what you're making.
Yeah, well, the first workflow that I saw change significantly was, when we come back from any shoot really where we've done interviews, we might come back with 20 pages of transcriptions of those interviews, and they're all time coded and everything. And you've got this big job ahead of you of going through these transcriptions to find the sound bites that you want to include in your piece that drive your story, the who, what, when, where, why information if you're making a promo, or emotional sound bites or whatever. And it takes quite a while to go through those and really figure out what the golden nuggets are that you're going to keep. And the first time I thought to myself, well, why don't I just toss these into Claude and see if I can't ask Claude, the large language model,
Mhm.
to find these sound bites for me? How about I just say to Claude, hey, find me the who, what, where sound bites so that I can make this promo. And it will say, well, they're at time code 18 minutes and 30 seconds. And you can just go grab that. And it's like, that probably saved me 10 hours a project, maybe more. That one little thing of just like, now instead of manually going through these transcripts to be like highlighting the sound bites I want, I'm just going to dump them in an LLM that can read the whole thing in 2 seconds and
Mhm.
give it to me whenever I need it. Give it back to me. Hey, I don't like this closing sound bite. Find me a better one.
Yeah.
Or like, some of the platforms that we're familiar with are introducing AI functionality, like Adobe and Canva, and they're already tools we use, but now they have new tools. Like one day I realized, oh my God, Adobe Premiere now has a remix tool where we used to have to cut music tracks down ourselves to fit the time of the video, which was pretty challenging. You've
Mhm.
got you got a minute long song and a 23-second long video, and you've got to cut the song down to 23 seconds. That can take a while. All of a sudden, a button shows up in Adobe where you just click it and drag the song, and bang, it cuts it for you. And it's like, well, there goes another set of hours, you
Right.
know, that I spend frequently. And so it's all these little efficiency things like that all along the production pipeline from pre-production to post, where you're finding these little efficiencies and stuff, or maybe make a GPT that like processes a creative brief faster or something like that. It's a number of things that are just blowing up long-standing workflows, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's something that people, to your point, like you don't really give much mind to or think about. Like maybe I saved 30 minutes here, maybe I saved, to your point, 10 hours on a project. Well, you extrapolate that out of depending on how many projects you do a year, you save 20 hours a project on all these little things. Like that adds up year over year. That makes
Yeah.
you more productive. That makes, timelines are now easier to hit. We're easier and you could be doing mostly the same work you're already doing today. It's just either, hey, you can do more of it, which helps either it helps somebody's bottom line. It makes you look more productive. So hopefully you get a raise. If you own the production company, you can put out more content. So again, helps your bottom line. It's just I think people sometimes get lost in the chat GPT or Claude. This is just so easy to use now that they don't realize, hey man, remember when I used to sit to have to create a PowerPoint and I would just like stare at the wall because like I did not know what I wanted the starting page to be, or how did I want to flow these two things together, these thoughts together? And you can just ask a model like, hey, here's all the points I want to hit. Give me a transition. And just throws that in there for you, creates a slide. It's kind of
Yeah, and
amazing.
that understanding of how to connect those dots or whatever isn't really the important part. Like you've had the idea and that's the important part, but you get hung up
Right.
in the process or whatever. And that sucks, because I think it
Yeah.
lowers the likelihood of success for anyone's projects when they just, if you haven't done it before or like you don't know how to do it, you can lose in those details. Like I don't know how to make a pitch deck. Okay, I don't know how to raise money for an idea, but the idea is great. Like people lose in those places a lot, I think. A lot of these tools can help you avoid those pitfalls. Hey, ChatGPT, I've never made a pitch deck before. Help me do that. What am I missing here? Here's my draft of my presentation. Like, I need this to look like I know what I'm doing.
Well, yeah, and you get that information in like an hour, or not even an hour, in like minutes. Versus like I remember I was looking for a pitch deck for like a startup, just for it was a dumb idea I had found after the fact. But like, how do I do that? Well, I eventually found the path of Y Combinator. I don't know if you know what that. It's basically a VC fund. They then at some point in a newsletter linked out to some dude who supposedly has the magic guru of a pitch deck, but like I think I was listening to Y Combinator content, reading it for months, eventually found that and was like, oh, hey, I should put my idea in this pitch deck. And it was all structured and ready to go. But it was 2 3 months of like, I'm doing research versus like, I could have just had the pitch deck and then I know the research to my idea I need to do. I don't need to make this like long thing. It's like, okay, here's all I need to pitch to a VC, right? Of data and be much more targeted.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all
Um,
good.
yeah, I think that's really exciting. I think giving more people a shot at realizing their ideas. And in my case, I'm excited about those ideas being creative ideas. Like the potential of individual creators or individual entrepreneurs to succeed has just gone up, in my
Yeah.
opinion, if they leverage the power of these tools to support them. And that's cool.
There is also a metric. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but there was a like people were tracking the first one person company to like $1 million. I think
Billion.
yeah, I think billion came, and now I think they're like people are guesstimating how long will AI models be that people could be the first $1 trillion one person company. Yeah, you probably have contractors, and yeah, you probably have other pieces, but that's crazy. Like you would never have thought somebody could provide so much value that they could single-handedly build a $1 billion company or $1 trillion company. Like
Yeah,
wild.
it's crazy. But I mean, I just this week started using Operator within
Mhm.
Open, and like when you start to see the agents go work on your behalf for the first time, you start to believe like maybe you could build a gigantic business if you have all these agents doing this stuff. I mean, this thing started searching the web on my behalf. I walked away and came back to a report.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, and I think even so, like Azure just announced the autonomous agents are now in public preview. So people can start building those custom of different rules, different data sources. So I even think internal company structure too, right? Like you can now go and get a report on your company's P&L That could have been somebody. I think it was Goldman Sachs, not 100%, don't quote me on that, but you can find on Twitter their acquisitions cut down by, I think it was like months to an afternoon, because 95% of the acquisition paperwork boilerplate is just generated by AI. Like, you can go out, do the research, come back with the standardized template, and then they fill in the last 5% instead of having to write this whole big boilerplate that probably was error prone, probably had issues, and now they can go and do all that. And I don't see a way, to your point of like helping individual entrepreneurs. Goldman Sachs used to take weeks, but now they can do it in minutes. Other people can start offering similar services. The competition can then hopefully drive the barrier to entry down to the point that, hey, if you're a mom and pop shop, say like we talked about pizza earlier, if I want a TV production level quality commercial, I can start doing that on a much smaller budget and then get it out there on social media, get it out there on different platforms instead of having to, hire an entire production crew, hire a script writer, hire all these things that like your mom and pop place probably wouldn't do that, just because like the cost is crazy.
Not just the mom and pops, but like Walmart's not doing that.
Yeah.
You know, like Walmart if I think when all this matures a little more, they'll have their own Game of Thrones series. Because why not? Like, why wouldn't any brand have outstanding visual storytelling? Because it's so possible. Like, all you have to do is call me.
Yeah.
You don't have to call someone who charges tons of money. You can call an individual now and be
Hmm.
like, we've got the same old marketing budget we always had, but we can do so much more. We could tell original stories. We could have our own original series. I think that's what's coming. And the mom and pops too. Anyone who's adventurous and understands the value of stories and content, I think it's all been leveled up. X. People just don't know that yet.
I even think like just film adaptations of things. Like, you have the script already done. Like, how easy is it going to be to do a film adaptation? You brought up Game of Thrones and the guy who's writing it, and I know the writers then had to continue on, but it's harder to get away from his voice if you fed it into an AI model that literally like gets the persona of the writer and then generates the end of it.
Yeah.
Like, you're kind of
100%.
there already. You have the source material.
If you're sitting on IP, like, whether you've developed that already and you want to develop it more, or you just haven't developed it at all. Like, for example, I was working with a company that does a lot of higher ed. And I was like, how about we make a bunch of original series about college mascots? Like, college has a college mascot and they have a brand and a location and like all these things where you could draw on this stuff to make this character, this world, like blow it out, make an animated series or something like that. I mean, and that's just one example, but any stories you're sitting on, any company stories, they can just be told in such more exciting ways.
Yeah. Instead of the generic like black and white, like this was the founder and they decided they wanted a widget and now you're working for them, or whatever rah company video.
Yeah. Well, you had to, you needed a couple $100,000 to make some of those videos in the past. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was
Well, yeah, and
harder.
if you do it cheaply, like you're still talking probably hundreds of thousands of dollars versus now the low end of those, like you can have potentially better quality and pay a fraction of the cost. Like, why
Yeah.
not?
And your talent pool now expands globally because it doesn't require someone who can come to your location and shoot something, right? So, we're still in the early days where a lot of the AI work doesn't hold up and can't replace one-to-one a lot of the stuff you would shoot and shouldn't, but the percentage of, maybe it's 5 or 6 out of 10 shots right now could be done generated instead of shot. And it's just going up every year. Like next year, it'll be 8 out of 10 images you might shoot with the camera you could generate.
Mhm.
And eventually it'll be 100%. Maybe not 100. I mean, you can't shoot a live sports game or, sit down interview or whatever.
I'm really curious your thoughts of, I've heard rumors, not rumors, I've heard people guessing with the future of television and with AI and all this auto generated stuff that it can get to such a point that everybody could basically have their own perfect like custom TV show. Do you think that's on the horizon where like maybe my television stuff is completely different than yours and we have like our own different stories being told essentially at that point?
Yeah, 100%. I really do. I think we'll see that. I think the future is generative content, and if you like spy thrillers and, and, uh, cooking shows or whatever, it'll make you a spy thriller with some cooking in it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and maybe you'll be in it as a character.
It's kind of crazy how that is because I mean, at the end of the day, that's what a lot of the media companies want is engagement, right? They want you to watch their stuff. They want you to interact with their advertisers because that's how they then get money. So it's like this like rotating thing of if you get to the point where you could do exactly that, like I go into a prompt and say, "Hey, write me a TV show of a spy thriller with cooking," and then the follow up show is, "Hey, remember that dish you saw in your spy thriller? Here's a walkthrough on how to make it now." Like, and I just sent you the grocery list to Whole Foods, who is a sponsor of this program.
Yep.
It just
Maybe
continues
you
to
find an
build.
audience and you start to become like a series creator and you own the distribution and you become a media company. Who knows?
It's crazy how that can just slowly evolve into like this whole encompassing thing of like, hey, now you're making the dish that you just learned about on the TV show that and I think we're kind of seeing that a little bit in the market where I think some traditional cable is struggling and like a lot of these independent creators are spinning up different content where people with their feed are showing like this is the content I want to see. There's just such a big diversity of content out there on YouTube, on Facebook, on TikTok, on pick your platform of choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think TikTok is the biggest challenger to cable probably out there, right? All these individual creators creating things for free. What, who can pay studios to keep up with that, And when all these creators can create much better stuff, that's going to be an interesting environment.
There's a guy I watch who does like these business skits and he's like the only actor and he puts them out like daily. So it's like they're like a 1 to 2 minute level like minute skit. So it's like not anything crazy, but it hits you every day versus like depending on the studio, you're talking about like we're watching a show on Hulu that drops weekly, or you have the Netflix model where they used to drop the entire season and your entire weekend might be consumed by that show, but then you're done with it and it's another 2 years before it's going to come back on Netflix again because they're still seeing the reports to see if it's even worth continuing. Like even the
Hmm.
great shows don't get renewed automatically usually.
Yeah. Yeah. Really true. Yeah. I look forward to the days where I can generate my own content. Give me more of The Wire meets The Sopranos.
Right. I think it'll be a interesting future if you get to that point because it's like at what point do you pay for the service that then you put your prompts into or like does it just monitor you behind the scenes and then craft those stories for you? And then how do you connect with other people? Because it's not like talk Yellowstone, right? Like that was a big acclaimed hit. If I get Yellowstone served to me and you get like Star Wars future laser people fighting with like how do we don't talk about programming then at that point, right? Because it's like yours is so niche that
Yeah.
how do we connect there?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think the water cooler talk, where we used to have scheduled programming and everyone watched, you know, NYPD Blue on Tuesday night at 8 and then came in on Wednesday and talked about it,
Yeah.
that was then. And then that all got blown up and Netflix was dropping whole series in one night and there was no time to sit around with your coworkers and talk about last night's episode. Someone just slammed through the whole season.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just, the extension of that where we're all just in our own little content worlds and you can share with your friends if you want.
I mean, we see that a little bit with TikTok too. Of like, my friends and I will always just send each other random memes or random TikToks of, "Hey, go look at this one" or "Look at this one," and it kind of is similar, but it's more like at the moment, I guess. So it's like it doesn't wait till work necessarily to talk about it. It's, "Hey, look
Hmm.
at this thing I just saw," or "Have you gone and binged the latest thing?" Like, no, okay, we'll talk about it after. We It's been interesting because there are some networks like Apple's a big one. All of their first party shows they drop weekly, I think for the most part. Like Silo was one that we really enjoyed, and every Friday we'd be like, okay, it's coming out at some point, but they're an online system, so like there's no reason other than wanting you to keep your subscription going that they couldn't just
Mhm.
drop it all at once.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Is there any other like AI, or I guess I should take a step back. So I think there was a some AI implications in the last writers strike we had. Are you concerned about potentially I think extras were one that were fighting, or potentially big name artists being able to be replicated in AI? Or is that like you think a trademark that they'll eventually sell? Like maybe, hey, I'm going to pay Tom Cruise's estate, and now I have Tom Cruise running in my random promo or whatever.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think people with individual brands will be able to leverage that quite a bit. Studios have been buying likenesses and stuff for a long time. I think it was there was a martial artist that was like unwilling to sell their likeness to one of the studios. I forget who it was. I should try to look that up. But like people have been fighting over this for a while now with like green screen technology and CGI. It might have been Jackie Chan. I forget. But I think that these jobs will be run over. How could they not be? I mean, I have a ton of friends that do these jobs, but a writer, a voiceover artist, like good luck. You know, uh, Chat GPT and 11 Labs are here. Um, I think you need to take a realistic look at where the world is headed. It's I empathize, but I'm in the same industry that they are, as susceptible to disruption as possible. My friends who are directors of photography or screenwriters or actors, voiceover, they're all facing a real challenge because this stuff is just so much easier and cheaper. I've just gone through an AI casting session, for example. I didn't have to call anyone. I didn't have to arrange anything. I didn't have to pay anyone. Same with writers and VO. I mean, I can get voiceover generated now. Right now, I can go to 11 Labs, type in anything I want, pick a voice, and I have it to work with and I own it. Working with a voiceover artist takes a long time. Even the good ones, they got to go home, they got to read it, they got to record it, they got to send it back to you, maybe do some revisions, you got to pay them. It's just like, it's not a fair fight.
Well, and then it's also, so let's pick on voice artists for a minute. If you can then help, let's say 11 Labs train a model, like maybe you have a very particular voice, like, I don't know, like the guy who voices SpongeBob. Do you then train a model and then now people can just purchase the SpongeBob voice? Then you don't do the work, you just make money, kind of like when old sitcoms run, right? You get your like royalty check. Is that kind of the future we look at? Uh, that's kind of what I'm seeing, right? Because if you can just go to 11 Labs and it's like, I can find somebody close enough, or I just need like a generic male voice or generic female voice, maybe it doesn't matter as much.
I mean, if I could pay $10 for Morgan Freeman's voice, I would do it. You know what I mean? Or whatever he charges for his AI version of his voice to narrate my video. Of course you could do that. I'm sure some people will. Why wouldn't you?
Well, and then on the voice actor side, like they didn't do any work and they're getting this check in the mail. Like, they get past the point of that even mattering because it's like, okay, I've built up, to your point, I built up my own personal brand enough that you're going to pay for my voice. Maybe you'll pay for me to be there. I don't know what, there's I forget the tool off the top of my head. There's an entire company around where you can pay like famous people to talk, like say your messages. Yes, thank you. It was on the tip of my tongue. You can have a virtual cameo. Like people already are paying. So Morgan Freeman, I don't know if he's on there, but somebody similar stature, 10, 20, $30 to say, hey, happy birthday, Bob. Alec sent you this card. Have a good day or whatever. Like they're making money
Absolutely.
doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I've used Cameo and I've had some of those like funny, like have Santa call your kids or whatever type of things is out there, and it'll all evolve. I think unfortunately the people who have a brand that they can monetize, that's a pretty edge case. I think most people are just trying to make some money or a career out of voiceover or something like that and charging $500 a whack for a commercial or more or whatever. And those are the people that are going to have to think about what to do next. Is there a way to use AI tools to help them with their voiceover career, maybe leveraging it in different ways, maybe scale it, or I don't know. But I think it's just, as a video producer, I'm sitting there and I'm going, I need voiceover. What's the fastest, best way to get me voiceover? I'm not necessarily thinking about uh, the employment of others. I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
about, I need to get my project made and I don't have any money to get my project made. I can go over to 11 Labs and I can get a voice. And I've been operating that way because I've been in cable access television for 15 years. Like, you have to beg, borrow, and steal, and like do things on a tight budget and as fast as possible. So anyone who's you should just be aware of that people aren't necessarily trying to take anyone's jobs. It's just trying to get the work done in today's environment. And it's just the reality of it.
For sure. Well, and I even think of like production level quality, right? Like if I have a cold and you pay me to do something, like you're either going to wait for me or you're going to move on or I'm going to sound awful. Like 'cause if we're talking and I'm recording a voiceover for you, like those are real challenges you have to think of. And then that hits your whole production schedule, hits all that. And you're like, maybe there's a way to synthesize your voice as a voice actor. And then you say, like, hey, you can just type it in and I still get paid. Maybe it's less, but I don't really do the real work after the model's been trained because it's just, hey, Eric, give me $20, type in what you want, and then my voice will spit it out for you. And maybe that's the new offering that's going to be coming about is you hire them and then you can type it up and just get it generated. And maybe they do offer a revision or two where maybe AI is a little bit choppy or you're doing a weird word that they maybe need to add to the catalog of words that they can say. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I think if people are out there and they're trying to figure out how to maneuver given all this change, I would recommend that they just look at the subject matter that they know the best, that they're the most interested in, and try to apply the AI tools that they're using to that subject matter expertise. In the case of voiceover, it might just be really difficult. But I think in a lot of cases, if you really know a particular area or you're very interested in it, or even better, an intersection of two or three areas that make you, if you can apply AI there, then I think that's a good recipe because you're going to have unique insight that you can apply, and that's a good space to be. It doesn't really matter what the subject matter is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Bringing something of yours to the table with these tools, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and voiceover might be so like zoomed in that it might be the same as if we were like 20 years ago or 30 years ago talking about like a switchboard operator, right? For like the phone companies. Like we might look back on that and be like, yeah, remember when people used to have to call somebody and somebody on the other end would like move cables around so you could talk to people? Like
Yeah.
it may be so we're so zoomed in that if you just zoom out one or two steps of maybe you're not in voiceover, but maybe you're in like production or something to that effect of, hey, now we have a production company instead of just a voiceover company and we're doing entire things. You're moving closer to the value stream. Maybe you're more successful altogether anyway. I think the future is super exciting and I'm really excited to hear when other industries are adopting it and see what all tools are out there and how people are using AI.
Yeah, same. It's fascinating stuff. And it's definitely because of all the generative tools affecting my industry a ton. So um, some people are jumping on, some people are not. I just happen to be one who is. I'm optimistic about it. I
Mm-hmm.
can't help it. It gets me excited thinking that I can create more stuff.
Yeah, I think with any technology, right, there's the people who, I mean, you look at the computer, right? There was people who were like, I do my job without a computer. How would I ever? And like those people kind of went the way of the dodo of maybe AI is overhyped and one day it'll go away. I don't see that happening, but you know, for every tech that changes the world, there's probably 15 other that we're like, yeah, this is life changing, and then nothing happened.
Hmm.
Well, you were right sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's here to stay. I think it's here to change most of what we're familiar with.
I think so. I think it's going to trickle into every industry and people are going to be using it whether they do or not. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it'll be awesome.
Yeah. I would just encourage people to try it. It's not scary. It's not going to bite you. And it's a general purpose tool if you're using an LLM. So you can ask it general questions and whatever you're challenged by, whatever you're thinking about, just start there. You know, I guarantee you'll feel the power quickly as it levels up your thinking.
Awesome. Is there any last call to actions or anything you want to plug at the end?
Oh, well, if people are interested in connecting with me, they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm active there pretty much daily. I spell my name kind of funny with a CH at the end. And I have a portfolio website of all my AI work at cgacreative.com.
I'll make sure that's in the show notes. And yeah, we
Thanks,
appreciate
man.
you chatting with us today.
My
Um,
pleasure.
yeah, have a great weekend. Bye,
Yeah, you too.
everybody.
Take care.